Hi craft nerds, how's it going? So I've been gearing up to do a new collection of jewellery. If you've been following my videos, you'll already know that and have seen some of the materials I've been buying for this collection. And I wanted to sort of take you guys along and show you how I plan out a jewellery collection and the steps I take and that sort of thing. And I highly recommend, trying some of these techniques, particularly if you have trouble with inspiration / motivation to make things. Maybe you're just not feeling inspired and just, struggling to sort of get started on a project or what have you, because, it can be difficult to start a project. Once you get started, it's not so difficult because you've got a direction, and unless it turns into a UFO, unfinished object, then you just sort of continue on that pathway as you're going along. So when I'm creating a collection, what I like to do is firstly think about what I'm inspired by. You can go one of two ways when it comes to, defining a collection for yourself. Basically, you could either go down the lines of the things that are currently really inspiring you. It could be a theme. It could even just be a color. So maybe you find that you're wearing a lot of orange, for argument's sake, just as an example. And you're being really drawn to that, and maybe you're wearing a lot of orange makeup and it's just something that's just really you're feeling at the moment, that you're wanting to have a lot of orange around you and things like that. Maybe it's a theme, maybe there's been something recently that's maybe it's a book you've read, a movie that you've watched, an article of clothing, whatever it is that inspires you, and try and work out what of that inspires you. Maybe it's a plant or a flower or a photo, whatever it is. Try and capture something that's really sparked your interest, and then, define why it has, and narrow down a collection based on that. That's one way that you can create a collection. The other way is to decide to challenge yourself. Maybe you're feeling a little bored, and you've been making a lot of the same things. You're really wanting to expand your repertoire, I guess. Then maybe you make a lot of floral stuff and you're wanting to sort of break out of that shell. Then I would say pick something that you wouldn't normally make and force yourself to make it. So maybe you never use orange, I don't know why I'm on an orange tangent right now, but maybe you never use orange and you want to challenge yourself to use it and make an entire collection out of orange. It's funny, you can feel completely uninspired by anything, and then suddenly there's a competition, or someone says, "Oh, I challenge you to do such and such," and it's those moments that often we are inspired, because suddenly we have parameters, and you have to think about how to fit within those parameters, how to make something work for that scenario, that color, that theme, whatever it is. And it really starts getting your brain working. If you have too many options, so if you were just creating without a theme or a collection or what have you, it can be a little overwhelming. You don't know where to start. If you can pick any color in the coloring box, you might sort of be stuck thinking, well, what do I do? And so this is a perfect way to do that. So I'm going to, in a moment, change the camera angle, bring you down onto my visual arts diary, which is where I start with any collection and how I start putting together, and I'll talk you through what I do. Okay guys, so this is my visual arts diary. Now when I studied fine arts, they really I want to say encouraged, but basically we had to have a visual arts diary for every class, and part of, you know, our studies was, you know, filling out details in our visual arts diary. They would, you know, check to make sure we were doing it, that sort of thing. And I think because of how much I was forced to do it, I stopped doing it, you know, sort of almost, you know, the rebellious artist. Like, I don't need a visual arts diary, it's all in my head. But look, honestly, as I've matured, I realised there is a lot of merit to it, and not only that, it's actually kind of enjoyable to really sit down and put your thoughts together, and it's quite a creative thing in itself to put it together. So, you know, it's a quill A3, because I like a lot of space. You can get A4 and A5 and everything, you know, if you're just on a small diary, especially if you're wanting to take it with you and sketch things on the go. You might even want to do both, you know, have a small one on the go and a large one for home, because you can fit lots more into the big ones. That's why I like it. I want to kind of jazz up this page a bit more, and I've been a bit slack and I haven't done it. I've just put my jewellery business name, which is Jewelled Alchemy, on there, and a little bit of gold pen and stuff like that. It did kind of come through a little bit. So my first collection, not the first jewellery I ever made by far. This was only a couple of years ago I started to do like collections of work, and I had just recently lost my father, and I went part-time at work around the same time. My health wasn't great either. I wanted my first collection to be, you know, just something that was completely inspired by my dad, and inspired by things like a tribute to him, to things that he liked that not many people knew about him, and two things that he liked that only those closest to him knew was that he loved blue flowers and lime milkshakes. So the first collection was very much about that. Getting a bit emotional talking about it actually. But so in my first collection, I really wanted to work out exactly how many pieces I was aiming for. I think as well because it was like my first one, I really wanted to like note that down. So I wrote out what I was wanting to make. I don't think I actually stuck to this, to be honest, but it was good to think about it. And you know, so I got images of everything that really inspired me, anything that was in the colours that I was looking at that just visually did something for me. You know, I actually try and steer away from putting anything jewellery related in here, because I don't want my work to be I want it to be mine and not too influenced by other jewellery. I'm okay, I don't mind being influenced by anything else, but I don't know, that's just a personal thing. I think if I had too many images of, or even any images of jewellery in here, of other people's jewellery, I would just sort of feel like I'd end up copying, you know, or there'd be too much of a thumbprint of someone else's jewellery in my own work. But, you know, look, it's your own visual diary. You can do whatever you want. And these are images that I just got off the internet from all sorts of places. And then I put notes about, you know, what I'm inspired by or materials that I'm wanting to use. Like I was looking at doing a butterfly that was shaded in blue and green. I'll also like get pictures of actual material that I want to use, you know, so if I'm wanting to use actual material, I wanted to use silk in there. I was looking at doing things that had wings in them. This is a Brian Froud picture that had the blues and greens in it. And, you know, at this point in time, I may just be forming ideas, and it's not set in stone. So this is, you know, it's a way to explore ideas. It doesn't have to be a blueprint of exactly what the collection will be. This is the lyrics to a song that played at my dad's funeral, which is Kimiad. Absolutely beautiful song. Very emotional to me, obviously, and so I wrote that down. I have a Scottish heritage, so my surname's McGregor, so, you know, and my dad was very proud of that Scottish heritage, so I was looking at things like the Celtic crosses and the blue Scottish thistle and things like that as possible things to put into the collection. And then some things that, like, Dad loved Jethro Tull, so I printed off some of the pictures, and, you know, with his really cool, very old worldy clothing, which is, you know, fantastic. I think that was Brian Froud again, and, you know, and then I might sketch pictures, like really quick, simple sketches of what I might put together for jewellery in there as well. And I'll use as many pages as I feel I need to. I tend to use 3 to 4 pages per collection. Now this is the next collection I did, which was Rust and Ruin. This is something that's something I've always been inspired by is rusted, broken down bits and pieces, juxtaposed with crystals and, you know, beautiful things. That real contrast, and I truly do find a lot of beauty in things that are rough and you know, old and broken and things. So I really wanted to explore that a little bit in this collection. So I was looking at a lot of different materials and like rusty colours. So, you know, you can see these are just different materials I was thinking to use. You know, the lava rock, I think you say that ammonite, you know, the geode drozzies and other things like that. And some of it I ended up using, some of it I didn't. But, you know, I'll put everything that I'm inspired by to start with. You know, I love steampunk. I've made quite a number of steampunk things, so that was definitely part of the inspiration for this collection was steampunk, and so I printed off different steampunk images I found online. Some of them came from like Mad Max, some from other artists, like I think that was a German or Russian artist, I really can't remember, that made these awesome bags, and if I ever saw these to buy, I would absolutely buy one in a heartbeat. I love them. And I really wanted to add black crystals into that as well, you know, so having really rusty, broken things and, you know, brass and old looking, you know, mesh wire roses was one thing that I'd used a lot of. And then using like really pretty looking faceted black crystals in with it as well. I just love that look. And then I printed off, you know, rusty bits and pieces as well. The collection after that was Darkness Falls. I didn't create as many pieces for this. I was trying actually to make more than one of the things that I was making. So this was more trying to move into, and I am still trying to do this, less one-of-a-kind pieces. Like, I still want to always make some one-of-a-kind pieces, but it's quite difficult to keep that up. And, you know, if I really want to start, you know, be more successful with my jewellery and sell more things and, you know, that sort of thing, and to be able to recreate things, then I need to try and make collections that are things that I could continue to make, or I can at least make small batch runs of. And that's what this collection was. And, you know, it had some success. There are some things that I think did really well, and that I will either recreate or use some ideas from that were that I feel were successful in other pieces, and that sort of thing. For example, I think my material beaded chokers seem to be quite popular, so I want to keep making those. I also made, and I didn't sketch as much on this actually, I made some butterfly pieces that were successful. The butterfly hair pieces, not so successful. I think the thing is with hair pieces, a lot of people these days don't wear large hair pieces. I think it's a shame, but yeah, there you go. I think they'd be great for like a gothic wedding though, or something like that, or any sort of event where, you know, maybe the races where you wear hair pieces and things like that. So this was a very purple and black collection. There's still some pieces from each of these collections on my Etsy shop at the moment. The next one was Enchanted Forest. Now, I really wanted to add a lot of elements of, you know, fairies, fae folk, moss and, you know, toadstools, all of those sort of really beautiful elements, and I wanted it to be very jewel toned, and obviously green for the moss. So it was lots of beautiful jewel tone things. Silk, I like to use a lot of silk in things. I actually didn't put mushrooms in it, and toadstools in the end. You know, you just don't know where things will go, and sometimes it depends on what I'm able to make or find and what sort of comes together, and, you know, it just develops and changes. And I don't always come back and sort of, you know, work the ideas in my book. I might just sort of move on and actually start creating things and let them evolve, and sort of refer back to these images when I'm doing it. And, you know, I was also looking at maybe adding berries and flowers in it, and crystals. I did end up making a lot of sort of little crystal terrarium necklaces, which didn't turn out to be as popular as I hoped. You know, you just never know how things will go. Like, so when I made that collection, I was thinking, oh, those are going to be the most popular thing, but funnily enough, it was more the silk stuff that was more popular, and I don't think any of the terrarium stuff was successful, really. So, whereas other terrarium things I've made have been. So it's, yeah, not sure on that one. Maybe it just depends what you put in them. So anyway, that brings me to my current collection, which obviously there is nothing there yet. The collection is going to be called Blood Rose, and you've seen a lot of the elements that I've been looking at that I'm inspired by. What I do is I look on the internet for different images that inspire me. It could be all sorts of things. Again, I try to steer away from actually looking at other jewellery. You know, I might look at techniques or whatever with jewellery, or, you know, creative techniques, but not any finished pieces, because I just don't want to be led in other people's direction. I want to see what happens when I put my ideas together myself. And with it, as I mentioned, you know, with a collection, you want to think of the colours. So when I'm doing a collection, I'm narrowing down the colours. I'm noting down in my diary the colours. You can even put swatches of the colours in there as well, if that helps you. And that way, you know, you limit yourself. So I've chosen things like red, black, silver, and I really want to keep it to those very narrow colours. I might end up putting a little bit of other colours in there if I feel it needs it, but I'm going to keep it very limited in its colours. And and I think I'll put grey and, you know, like a hematite colour in there as well. And I want to keep it very limited to that, and those parameters really help me then start thinking about what I'm inspired by. So you can lay out a visual diary any way you like. I like to put the title of the collection because to me that's part of my inspiration. As I mentioned in an annotation earlier, I did change the name to The Bleeding Rose. I just ended up liking that more. So yeah, I like to have a mixture of pictures that either are just inspiration to me or are pictures of the actual materials I'm thinking I'll use in the collection. Again, it just helps you sort of solidify some ideas in your mind. There's quite a bit of cutting that happens for this one. I must have picked out a lot of pictures. Now, I just decided to group them together, you know, like for like. So I wanted to put all the thorns together. That was one element I was particularly inspired by. And to be honest, I'd still like to explore some more jewellery with thorns in it. I need to work on how I'm going to do that though without causing any injury to the people wearing the jewellery. But yeah, so, you know, the thing is with a lot of the collections I do, I end up wanting to still make some things in that theme later on. And you can definitely do that. It doesn't have to be in that one collection. You can revisit it and find the inspiration that you had again and make another piece in that theme. So I really enjoyed a lot of the imagery that included some very stylized filigree work, you know, almost tribal, and a sort of a stylized look at the thorns as well. I thought that was an interesting take on it. I've very much loved the deep reds. Red is one of my two favourite colours, mainly the really deep burgundy reds. I also really loved those grey roses. Wouldn't mind bringing those into something, a piece later on. It's interesting reflecting on my visual arts diary now that I've finished the collection, and thinking about all of the things that I'm still inspired to make that I didn't get to explore. You can only do so much in one single collection. You know, if you try and do every single thing, you'll just never release the collection. So I try to be a little bit easier on myself, and, you know, when I feel like I have a good body of work, I'll release it, because it does take so long to make these things that, you know, I don't want to be working on it forever. So it can definitely help to put some little swatches of colour so that you can see them together and see if you're happy with the colour palette that you've selected. Sometimes I'll refine this further. You know, I've definitely had collections where I've put extra colours that I think I might use, and then really paired that back again, or maybe changed the tone of a colour that I was using, or whatever the case may be. You're just really exploring your ideas at this point, so, you know, don't worry about whether it's a fabulous idea, whether, you know, you're just putting pretty basic notes. You don't need to worry about anything at all when you're doing this. It really is just putting any ideas down that you have, just thinking through, you know, absorbing the imagery that you've selected to sort of paste in, all that sort of stuff. Now, the number of pages you do is also up to you. It really just depends on how much, you know, planning or pictures or what have you that you're wanting to put in. You could keep it quite brief. You could, you know, be more elaborate than I have and have even more pages. I've gone for 4 pages for this one, and, you know, I would continue if I wanted to still put some more imagery there, but or I've had ones where it's just been 2 pages, you know, so. I like to do some rough sketches of, you know, ideas for designs. They're just really doodles of pictures. They're not anything too planned out, because I feel like, for me at least, I just want a basic guideline for a design, and I find that the beads really dictate where that's going to go, and it can be a little difficult for the type of work that I do, at least. I find it difficult to really plan it out to the bead or anything. It's just a loose depiction or direction of what I'm wanting to achieve. And as I've mentioned with all of the things that you put into your diary, these are just ideas. A lot of times I'll go back and have a look at the original designs that I had sketched out, and I've gone in a totally different direction. You can usually see that it's in the same inspiration vein, but I might not explore the exact ideas that I've written down, but that's again part of the process. I'd still like to make a few pieces, like I said, one in particular being a choker, and I'm just trying to source some materials for that, and I might still make it. Okay, so I've put together, as you can see, some sketches. I've glued the pictures in. It's just rough ideas. It's kind of like a brain dump. I've got some just words that came to mind when I was thinking of the collection. I tried to group the images together because that helps me, but you can do it however is going to help you form your ideas. I've put some little colour swatches. They're going to be my main colours here, and then maybe a little bit of green and purple in there. I'm doing little sketches, really rough sketches, because I don't want to be too tied down to a sketch. It's really just to get the ideas flowing, and I know that when I create things, that's when I will be planning each piece out much more. So again, got the roses here with blood. I've put just different coloured roses as well, like a blacky purple one, grey, purple with the red, and then just your brighter red colours. That's a picture of some beads that I actually have for it. A little bit of green because I think that might work, just for the leaves. So I may end up putting a little bit of green in there, we'll see. Rough sketches of, I'm thinking of doing some sort of choker made of segments that are held with chain, and maybe a jewel in the middle, highly beaded. I want multi-chain things happening. And I may add some more sketches to this, but right now that's all I want to put in there for now, and I'll let those ideas kind of culminate in my mind, and then if I think of things, I'll add them into here as well. So guys, I hope that has helped you when thinking about planning out your own jewellery, or even anything creative at all. I mean, obviously a visual diary can be used for everything, and when I did it back at TAFE, it was very much for every class: sculpture, printmaking, painting, all of it. We had visual diaries. So, have a think about getting one yourself and see if it helps you think of ideas and create things. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I may have more videos to show you as the collection comes together. And I'll see you next time. Bye, craft nerds.